Hey guys, Becky here with Design Bundles, and I'm super excited to have you join me today because I'm introducing to you a new product that is new to me, and hopefully you guys enjoy it. It's a great epoxy alternative, and it's called Crystalac. So let me tell you more about Crystalac. Now, first of all, let me say I am not affiliated with Crystalac. This is absolutely a product that I paid for out of my own pocket. It's a product that I've wanted to try for a really long time. It is gaining a lot of popularity. So a few of you guys, maybe you found this video because you are researching Crystalac. And let me just tell you that I am an absolute beginner with Crystalac. I am very excited to use it and introduce it with you guys because it is a really good epoxy alternative. Now, you guys may not know that epoxy is actually can be a very toxic substance to work with. It releases a lot of fumes and you need to take a lot of precautions. And I'm not trying to scare you off of epoxy, but that may be the reason why you're here because, not everybody wants to kind of take that risk with their health or, be exposed to that type of environment or purchase that type of protective equipment. So if you're here because this is an epoxy alternative, you're going to be very pleased with the results here. At least I think so. One thing to keep in mind is that pretty much anything, well, I won't say anything, most things that you can do with epoxy, that you can seal with epoxy, you can seal with the Crystalac Bright Tone. Now, Crystalac does have a wide range of products. They also have a lot of really good education out there to help keep you informed on what you can use their products for. And it just really, I'm really interested. I'm very interested and looking forward to experimenting with this. So I'm going to kind of stop my sales pitch, but I love that we have a safe alternative to use with our epoxy projects, and that Crystalac is so versatile. Alright guys, so we're going to speed through the beginning a little bit, but basically I found these little wood hexagons, and they're actually meant to be like little shelves, but they're 5 inches by 6 inches, and I just knew they would make cute little trays. And because we're experimenting with Crystalac, and you're going to see several projects throughout the video, but because we're experimenting with Crystalac, you really want to start with simple projects. So I'm starting off on this one by giving it a nice base coat of white, and then I'm going to do a little bit of painting in the middle. So if you already have your project completed, you can actually move forward until we start talking about the actual Crystalac product. But I'm going to do this project, and we have another tray that I'm going to show you without the white all the way around, and then we have another 2 projects. We're going to do an earring and necklace set, and then we're also going to do, without the painting, a small ring dish. So definitely keep an eye out for those. But the reason why I wanted to show you this part was because just to give you an idea of the type of painting that I did. You can actually go off the deep end. I obviously decided that I didn't really care for those color combinations. So what I did was this one I combined the pink and the yellow, and I really got a lot of pink and coral colors and yellow. So it's real nice, bright, springy. Obviously I go heavy on the pink, but I just really like it. The problem with getting into this kind of freestyle painting is, number one, you're not always going to like the results because, it does take a little bit of that artistic touch. And, I can't say that I have it. I do enjoy painting, but it's not really something that I'm good at. So what happens is I end up adding and then covering up and then taking away and that sort of thing. But here you're going to see a much more minimalistic approach. I am still going to paint the inside of it white, but I did use the smaller brush, and I'm just doing a single layer of white paint. That way I'm still going to go in and add some color, but you could have easily left this white also. Now I do have some tips on working with the Crystalac when it comes to white colors and white base coats, but for the most part, you can do anything you want. Crystalac is great for not only sealing our vinyl on here, but it's going to seal the paint on here as well. Now I went with pinks and the teal color, and I also blended in a little bit of purple, and I was much happier with this one, and I did it as a dry brush, so that made a difference also. So now you can see I'm back in here on the white and the pink. I did not care for the pink border, so we're just going to cover that up a little bit. And then I did touch up on the inside a little bit as well. So now it's very important that after you get done painting, you do want to allow your paint to dry at least overnight. So if you were hoping to get this project knocked out, then I would go ahead and maybe grab a project that you already have ready, or go ahead and start with the ring dish because you don't have to wait for that one to dry. But I do work on all of mine simultaneously. So while I work on this part, let me go ahead and tell you about the Crystalac. Now, I did portion out Crystalac from the, I usually buy it in bigger quantities. So I portioned this out so it's not in the original tub, but I did provide the link for you so you can check it out. This is the Crystalac Bright Tone. It is a clear top coat. It's very good for these types of projects. It is also very thin. So I actually went a little heavier on this coat, and I'm looking to get that sort of glass finish. But I've actually since learned that going with a heavier coat can cause your project to take on a yellow tint. So definitely very thin coats, and you want to give it about 3 to 4 hours. You want to make sure it's completely dry, and you're going to layer on the coats. So it'll take a longer time compared to, actually using epoxy. Epoxy you can layer on there pretty darn thick and, let it cure overnight and then move on. While this is a very similar process, it does require more involvement on your behalf because you do have to do several light thin coats. All right, I just cannot stress that enough. You want very thin, light coats. And if you notice that it's a little bumpy, you can sand in between the coats. Now, the reason that I went ahead and applied the Crystalac before I put my vinyl on there, okay, because I am putting a vinyl monogram on here. The reason that I did that is because I wanted my vinyl to have a really smooth texture. My paint, because it's not just one smooth layer, my paint was not super smooth to be able to apply the decal on there. So I said, well, let me go ahead and get a couple coats of Crystalac on here, and then I will apply the vinyl. And you'll see that coming up, but I wanted to go ahead and tell you why I did that in the beginning. So after I get those coated evenly, you want to make sure they are on a completely flat surface. So it will level out, the coat will level out, and that's just important while it dries to make sure that they stay completely level. Now I am going to go ahead and knock out these earrings real quick because I want this paint to dry also. So I'm going to go ahead and do just a white base coat so that I can paint those in after a while. And then here's the sanding that I was talking about. Now, of course, this is at hyper speed. I really wish that I was that fast at sanding, but I just took a little bit of sandpaper that I already had on hand, and I am sanding out the bright tone finish. Now, I believe I've done 3 coats, and I wasn't very diligent on keeping them smooth. Part of the reason because I couldn't stop touching them, just to be honest with you, and that left some fingerprints and because I was moving them around. So sanding them is very important. That way when I apply my vinyl, it's nice and smooth. All right, so it is going to take a lot more effort on your part for the Crystalac, and the only reason I say that is because epoxy is kind of like a one and done. You know what I mean? I can, for a lot of projects, if I'm an experienced epoxy user, I can apply 1 coat of epoxy, let it cure overnight, and under the right circumstances, that should be the only thing I have to do with it. Bright tone does take those really thin and multiple coats, multiple layers, okay? So what you're going to do is allow those layers to cure in between, but they don't require the same curing time either. You can cure Crystalac, or rather it will cure on its own, a thin coat, in 3 to 4 hours. So I say it takes a lot more effort just because you will want to, if it's a project you're trying to get out quickly, you can, set a timer and come back and do a new coat every 3 to 4 hours as long as it's cured in between. but it's definitely not a, set to the side and forget about it after the first coat. You're going to come back in and do multiple coats. So I'm going to go ahead and finish doing a little bit of artwork here on my earrings and pendant, and then we're going to take a look at applying the vinyl decals. Now I used a really nice, pretty holographic, and this is actually a rose gold holographic, and it looks really good on both of these pieces. So I think it was a very good choice. What I'm going to do is just go ahead and weed it out, and then I'm going to cut down the transfer tape just a little square, and I'm going to apply this directly on the bright tone. Now I did blow out we'll call it debris from sanding it. I think you saw that earlier. I actually cheated and I used some of the canned air, the duster, to blow it out, but you can also wipe it down. But after I apply it, I'm going to go ahead and apply another coat of bright tone on here. And here, if you take a close look, you can see a little bit of that yellowing that I was talking about. That's important to remember. And I of course, didn't really know what I was doing at that time, as far as I would not have put a heavier coat on there if I had realized the yellow. So probably what I would suggest is, number one, not to start off with a white project. Okay, definitely start off with a color that isn't going to show the yellow if you get it too thick. But also just make sure that you're doing those thin coats. So what I'm doing here is I'm doing thin coats, but I did a thin coat over the entire project and also a thin coat over the earrings themselves. And I will continue to do those thin coats until my project is completely done. Now, I will say the ring dish is probably a really good place to start. All I did was apply the vinyl decal, and then I added some of the bright tone in there and let it cure, and it worked out really, really well. Now, of course, I do have some close-up pictures for you guys, so make sure you stay tuned until the end. But I just really wanted to give you my first overview of using the Crystalac product, the Bright Tone product in particular, and what I thought about it and the tips and tricks along the way. So let's give you a recap. We do want to make sure that we do thin coats. Okay, you also want to make sure that if you're using any type of paint, that you wait at least overnight. That is especially important if you're using any type of spray paint. Okay, you want to make sure that it has time to gas off. I believe I read that the spray paint needs to gas off for about 48 hours. So definitely something to remember. But the thin coats, the light coats, and the multiple coats, okay? And don't be afraid to sand in between. But guys, like I said in the beginning, like Crystalac is a safe product. It is definitely a really, really good epoxy alternative. You don't have to worry about, all the personal protective equipment and things like that. And while you do want to do your research on Crystalac, you don't want to just take my word for it, okay? Safety is very important when it comes to crafting. But like I said, this is just a really good alternative, and there's a lot of really great things that you can use it for. So guys, what did you think about our Crystalac projects? Now, I know that I did not go super in depth on how to use Crystalac for other projects such as tumblers and more of those we'll just call them 3D projects, but these were some really great beginner projects. They're really inexpensive to work with, and in my opinion, that is really what you need when you're experimenting with a new product like Crystalac. Okay, because especially if you're coming from epoxy, or maybe you've just never worked with a medium like this, then there are really going to be some factors that you need to fine tune. Like I know when I started epoxy, it mattered the humidity in the air and the temperature of my room and things like that. And while Crystalac does not seem to be as temperamental as far as the actual setup of it, it still is going to have its own set of unique features that you may need to work out on your own. So hopefully you enjoyed it. This is just one of the many products that Crystalac has to offer, and I'm very excited to be able to try out more in the future. But guys, just make sure that you always keep an open mind anytime, especially, you know, we're looking at this because it is a safety improvement, okay? We want to be very safety conscious when it comes to crafting, because we want to make sure that we are informed and research the things that we are coming into contact with, and perhaps breathing in, you know, any types of fumes and things like that. So that's where I'm going with that. Hopefully you guys enjoyed the projects. Hopefully this is a product that you know, will interest you, or at least pique your curiosity to make sure that you are really doing your due diligence. And guys, if you have any questions, make sure you leave those down below. I do have a really good friend of mine who has been using Crystalac for a very long time, and she has promised to help me answer your questions. So, you know, definitely just let me know, let me hear from you, and we will experiment with some more projects in the future. So I'm going to wrap it up for today, guys. But don't forget, make sure you like, subscribe, share. I love all the support that you always show for the channel. And guys, we'll see you again next time.